This is Arts Alive. I'm Lynda Phillippi. My guest is Tim Timmerman. He's a professor of art at George Fox University in Newburgh. So welcome.
Thank you, Lynda. Good to be here.
And when you came in today, I have to be sure I sit on my hands so I don't wave them around in front of your art.
That's all right.
When you came in today, I noticed that you were carrying this intriguing character. So
yes.
Should we start maybe by just introducing him?
Certainly. Since
Okay.
I've been introduced, might as well introduce the sculpture.
Yeah.
Right? This is a piece called Release. I actually created it this summer. A lot of my work is figurative in that I want to create things that people relate to, and he started out with kind of this idea of someone who needs to let go of something. So everything starts out in my sketchbook, and he started out as kind of a figure, actually originally by a stream that was letting go of kind of stones he's holding on to. And what I did is just I collect objects in my garage and in my studio, and you know,
Makes you fun to live with, I'm sure. Yeah.
certainly. So I just kind of start going through the piles and figuring out how to build that figure out of what I have at hand. And sometimes I have to go out and look for things, but that's kind of how he came to be. So the idea was letting go of something, but also I used a cover of a light for his torso, and figured out that I have this little figure of the boy on a bicycle, and figured out that just fits right in the middle of him. So it ended up having a dual meaning of even releasing maybe something inside of him. And actually I made the head twice. First head was totally overworked and didn't work, and the second head just kind of took shape. It's a float if you look at it closely. But also I think you may be able to tell I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona, and as a kid collected kachinas, and so
Yeah.
I feel like it kind of came out a little bit on this one, but I like that it's, be it horns or the moon or part of a halo kind of on top of him. Someone said to me, "Oh, this looks scary," and I'm like, what? You know, he's crying. How is someone scary when they're crying? But maybe it was the horns. I don't know. But yeah, that's the idea. And then later I end up doing often paintings of versions of these figures. And actually this guy, I just finished his painting this morning. So.
And do you have an image of that?
I don't have an image of that because I just
Okay.
finished it
Oh,
this
that's
morning.
right. Okay. So I know that you brought some images.
I did.
And if we want, maybe we can go right into the images, and then you can talk about your work through your images
Sure.
if you'd like. So
Sure.
we'll see if they can bring those up for
Okay,
us.
so let's launch into them. So this figure is called Muse, and the idea for me was, you know, Matisse talked about how he had these lovely women that communicated to him and told him what to make. I feel like I have something upside down stuck on top of my head. So this is a toy, actually, I had as a child. So this is one of the few things that is made out of materials I had a long time ago. And its head fell off, or the top of the sombrero fell off a long time ago. So I ended up making this other figure and then later sticking them back on. And then from that, I ended up doing a painting, and the painting's a little different than the figure itself. I love realism and kind of catching textures and surfaces. I think that's why Gary and I are friends. But in this, my idea is the little muse is singing, and he's singing it like a sad Irish ballad and making the figure cry.
I'm
listening
sorry.
to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I do in terms of take these original images and then build a painting off of them. But the paintings are always a little different. This is called Burden. I think we all know people like this, and I won't say who this is based on, Lynda. It's no one we know, no one in the room. But the idea of, you know, when you, people that are, communicate to you all the time like, oh, life's so hard, things are so hard, and you kind of want to say to them, you know, you're causing this, you're creating this dilemma. So he's really upset because he has this tiger on his back, but if you notice, he's holding the wires that are holding the tiger to his back and to him. So then there's a painted version of this one as well that's a little bit more of a straight-on shot. And I like that play of the real with the synthetic in terms of the painting is just pigment on a canvas. And Gary quoted Picasso, I'll quote Picasso too, that Picasso said, art is the lie that points you to the truth, and that's just pigment, but it's also a representation of this kind of figure. And then another one here, this one's called Stream. I actually built this in my sculpture class with my students.
Oh, how cool,
They're currently on that assignment right now, where they're building a figure out of objects. His body is actually flooring I got from our plant services department at the university, as well as the legs are parts of brooms. And he has little old tins for his arms that are old slide tins. And he's crying, but the idea is he's crying and he's keeping this little fish alive. And you can see it in the painting as well, that the idea that our sorrow, or this little character's sorrow, is bringing joy and happiness to something else that's able to survive because of that character's sorrow, which, being hopeful, being positive here, right? That out of our trials, out of difficulties, something good happens, right?
I think you've been listening to my conversations with my friend. That's interesting, yeah.
There you go.
Oh my goodness.
We're all in this together.
We are, it's true.
So this is a larger piece actually completed this summer. And the concept with this was this, I actually just called this figure Goodness, in that he has a bear kind of as a torso and flowers growing out of his head instead of horns. I kind of like the idea that if we looked like kind of what was going on inside of us, or spiritually, right? Mm-hmm. And flowers blooming, growing, growth, being generative and the like. He's holding a little version of himself, was my idea, in his hand, and he has really big ears. So kind of like the idea, like, look, I kind of looked gawky and awkward as a kid, and these really big ears, and the little kid's happy too. But he grew into his ears, was kind of the idea. And this one's called parousia, which means, it's a term often used for actually like the second coming in Christian terms, but also means sudden appearance of something. So wanted this figure that has these birds kind of suddenly bursting around him, be it goodness, spirit, whatever, and he's kind of swaying with it. So intentionally made, it's slanted.
Like this.
Right, it's like, and part of it too was I have a shirt that has slanted stripes, and I had drawn a picture, and I had a funny goatee, actually, when I drew a picture of myself with that. So this was based on this kind of funny chops, goatee, and this appearance of these things. This, the head on that is pâte verre, which is a cast glass method that I teach in sculpture as well, which is using powdered frit or glass and running it at a higher temperature so it suddenly melts and congeals, basically. So it's hollow, but this one's called Tender, and it's this figure kind of tending to these characters, but also I like the idea of he's the landscape in and of itself, like he's tending to the characters, and almost like his head is the sky, was kind of my thinking. That's an actual bone in his arm, and this is just kind of goofy, but when I was cutting it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it smells like the dentist. Like, little did I know, they're grinding down my teeth.
Oh yeah.
They're working, but this figure tending. This is an older piece I asked just to put in here, kind of showing you where the work was before I started doing these figures, and that I was doing these landscapes, often tornadoes or other kind of storm systems, and then building these structures around them. So that dog is a cast dog out of bronze on there. And this is called Stay. So actually I just got a Scotty dog when I had built this and was teaching her Stay. And so, the idea that within turmoil, tough times come, but you choose to stay and stick with it. So, and tornadoes are kind of this beautiful but also terrible thing. And my mom had actually recently passed away when I was doing these, and I think she's from Kansas, and so I think that's why I started doing these. I was like, why am I doing these tornadoes? I'm not from Kansas, but I think that's how they kind of showed up.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I mean, it's really interesting. The pieces that you have, to me, they really kind of tell a story. I mean, maybe they do to you as well, but I think as you're speaking about each different piece, and it is the struggle and the sadness, and many of your characters are sad or have tears, but then there's hope and there's joy from struggle and turmoil. I don't know, it sounds like it's like a book. Like these could illustrate some sort of a story of hope and redemption from, massive struggle or something. That's so interesting.
Well, my hope is, in a sense, they illustrate your book. They illustrate, in a sense, my book.
Right.
I feel like an effective piece of art functions as a mirror. So someone's going to look at that piece of art and they're going to see their story, themselves within it, right? And I'm hoping that they get in the general ballpark of what I'm talking about, right? Like, I may have a specific story of releasing or letting go of something that this piece came out of, right? but you don't need to know my specific
No,
story.
because I've got my own story.
You have your own
And
story.
it's going to relate to my story or
Right.
that of somebody that I know.
Right.
Which is really interesting because you think about this, that when people are, in fact, really caught up in their own struggle or their own drama, if you will, whether it's of their own construction or because, they've enabled or whatever, or just, the fickle finger of fate, something bad has happened. It's really difficult to step outside and to look at that and say, I can't take this personally. It's a universal thing. Everybody does this.
Right.
Then you see this. And you have one interpretation, and seriously, I have a friend who's having some tough times right now. I'm seeing this completely in a different way, like as a metaphor for what she may be going through. And as you're going through all these images, I think, man, this is what art does. It helps you make sense of your own story, because no matter how tough it is, it really relates to everybody else's struggle as well. And there are enough happy endings, if you will, or endings that end.
Right.
We come to the other side.
Right.
And I think that's what's really so interesting about what you do.
And there's art can be a safe place to say, look, I'm not alone. Like,
yeah.
Gosh, I know exactly what that feels like. It's that Joni Mitchell song or Patty Griffin song or whatever that you hear that, like, that's my story too.
Yeah.
And I guess it's my hope that my art functions the same way, in that I hope as the artist I get out of the way and the pieces can end up saying things that I don't even know. And I've had that happen in terms of I've had people come back and say to me things about pieces I didn't even notice I put in it, and that they noticed. And I feel like hopefully I'm tapping into something more universal.
The collective
than just
unconscious
me.
or something.
Yeah,
I
very
think,
much so.
I think that's true, and it's probably for your students as well. I mean, if this they're new college students, this is their first away from home thing,
Right.
So that they just get to really start the process of becoming adults,
Yes.
and then start that lifelong process of of really coming to grips with their own story, their nuclear family story, and what they don't even have a clue about yet.
Right.
All those things that won't hit them till they're 40 or 50 years old.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they'll relate to this in a totally different way. They'll say, oh my God, I totally get that now.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I talk to them a lot about, technically, you've got to be skilled and really draw the viewer in. And that's where someone's going to first look, is technically. Like, do you know what you're doing? Is it a nice painting? Is it constructed effectively? And then conceptually is what you're going to bring up next. And you've got to have a good concept, a good idea. But you can't, I think with the students wrestle with, I have this great personal story, this great idea, but they don't have the technical skills, or
But they just know how to do
right,
it.
Right. And I'm working with that. And also working with them on the concept stuff too. I do a lot of things. We read poetry, we read authors, like anything from Oliver Sacks to Haruki Murakami. And just draw on others' ideas that then, okay, how do you feed these ideas into your own work and into your concepts? And they get there. I think by the time they're seniors, they're looking pretty good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you coming in today. And, again, are you showing?
I am fairly soon here. Bush Barn is doing a show in January called, I believe it's called Curiosity Cabinets, or it's based on Curiosity Cabinets. So there'll be probably 3 to 5 of these guys and gals there.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, we'll look forward to that and maybe seeing you again.
Would love to. Great
Thank
meeting
you.
you.